Hi there, and welcome back to this lesson on typography in After Effects, and specifically, how do we set up typography? How do we actually use it in the program? So let's start by making a new project, and we'll go File, New Project, and we don't need to save this one. There we go. We're all set up. We've got our timeline here, our composition, and I'm going to hit Command K just to see we've got a 1920 by 1080 composition, 24 frames per second, 10 seconds long, background color black. Let's make it just slightly reddish, grayish black. It's a dark red. And we'll call this typography. And I'll click OK. And there we go. So we talked previously about the tool panel up here, and right here is our typography tool. I'm going to click the horizontal typography tool. I'm going to click, and I am going to write out a masterful, oh, I can't even see the type, performance. And it's so dark, I can't even see the type. So there it is. I'm going to go back to my selection tool. We can't see it. We're going to go over here to our character panel. I'm going to click to open it up. And there we go. And you can see it's set to black. I'm immediately just going to set it to white, just like the description here says. And there it is. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this panel over so we can see it a little bit better as well. So here we are. And I can tell I spelled it wrong. There's two M's there. A masterful performance. So what is the character panel? Well, it's this very, what looks like a very simple panel, but it has a lot of powerful features to it. So when we work with typography, it's typically the character panel and the paragraph panel. The paragraph panel is kind of like you would think if I make this into two separate lines. There we go. And I say, here's center justified, left justified, right justified, and a few other options here that aren't super important. If we go back, let's just make this center justified. We'll close that. We'll open character back up. And there we go. Not too exciting. So the first thing we need to look at is the actual size of the font. And if I increase this from 25, and I just drag it up, you're going to see, lo and behold, there's bigger type, right? So already a much improvement over what we had prior. That's the type size. But before we even get to the type size, here is where we can select our typeface. Typefaces like Helvetica Neue, Impact, the list goes on and on. There's tens of thousands of typefaces out there, right? So we've selected typeface Helvetica, and then under the typeface, this is where we set the font style. So we can set it between light. It might help if I have the text selected. I can change it from regular to light. You can see it automatically update here. I can change it from light to bold. There we go. We could change it to light oblique, which is like an italicized version of type. But very simple, typeface here, font here. Okay, so the first thing I want to select is the font family or the typeface. And Adobe has something very powerful built into it, and that is called Adobe Fonts. It used to be called Typekit, now it's called Adobe Fonts. If we click this little button right here, we can add fonts or typefaces to After Effects very, very easily. Okay, so here we are inside of Adobe Fonts, and I'm not going to go through a lot of what this site can do, but I'll give you a quick rundown. Here we can select different classifications, like here we're selected all, here's just sans serifs only, serif fonts, slab serif, script, black letter, mono, hand, decorative. And within these classifications, we can also select things like recommendations for if we're using, we're creating paragraphs, right? So what are some recommendations for paragraphs? These are the recommendations. We can also go to headings and pick different typefaces based on that. We can look at properties like weight, width. If I want something very heavy, it's going to pull up heavy fonts. And I want it to also, let's say, be a mono classification. Well, this is the only one that has for a heavy mono typeface. There's also different places you can go in here. You can look at font packs, which are very interesting. These can show you different classifications that Adobe has put together for different types of fonts. So let's say, we're looking for, here's a band poster font pack, and it's just a bunch of different typefaces and fonts that they think would look good on, rock and roll posters or R&B posters, what have you. So going back to browse fonts, I know that I want to try Baskerville. So we're going to type in Baskerville, and immediately there's two family results that pop up. We are going to pick the very first one, Baskerville PT, and it's going to load these up. And you can see here, in Baskerville, there's quite a few different fonts within the typeface. There's regular, there's italic, there's bold italic, regular, poster, and then poster italic. I can select just one of these if I want, or I can activate the entire family if I want. So I can also enlarge type here to see how it's going to look. I can go up here and I can type in a masterful performance, because that's what we typed up in After Effects. So I can actually see my type displayed here, which is awesome. This is a great feature of Adobe Fonts. I love this about it. So I can see, what it's truly going to look like in here. So I like Baskerville. I think I'm going to go with probably display regular. But let's go ahead and activate all the fonts. All I have to do is click this button. It's going to say font activation successful. It's blah, blah, blah. And you can see up here, the fonts were activated within my Creative Cloud. So immediately they're added to my system. They are ready to go. So I will jump back into After Effects, and I can select my type, and I can type in over here Baskerville, or I can actually just scroll up here to my B's. Where are you at? And I can find Baskerville. I also have Baskerville, just a different, slightly different typeface that I already had installed, but PT is the one that we just picked. I'm going to say display, perfect. There's regular, italic, bold, and bold italic. I actually just love regular. Italic is nice as well. Let's stick with regular for this one. So there is our typeface and our font selected. Easy peasy. If we want to go in and add additional typefaces or fonts that we want to check out, all you have to do, like I said, is just click here, go add Adobe Fonts, click it, and you're good to go. You can go and search through all the different typefaces and fonts Adobe has to offer. This is included in your Adobe subscription. So once our typeface and font are selected, that's when we can also go in here and start fine-tuning our size of the type, which I think I want this, rather large. So I kind of like it up in here, 204. Next, we have leading. And if we look, it says 165. Leading is the spacing between lines of type. So if there was only one line of type here, if this was a masterful performance in one line, we wouldn't have to mess with leading. But leading allows us to adjust the spacing here between the lines. Below that, we have something called tracking, and tracking is the spacing between, kerning is actually the spacing between the letters. Tracking is like the overall spacing of the word in one big chunk. So we can adjust this if we want to. I'm actually going to bring it in here just a little bit, maybe a -4. That looks pretty nice. This right here is the stroke width. So if we had stroke set to something, which we don't, you can see right here, there's a line through the stroke because there is nothing there. If I decided to add a color to that stroke, I just click and I could add an ugly red stroke there. And then now this is set so I can play around with the, the thickness of that stroke. If I want to change the fill to be over, right now it's fill over stroke. If the stroke is over the fill, you're going to see it jump in front. It's a little bit thicker looking now. Here's some other options. I typically never use a stroke on my typography. I personally just don't care for it. So I will go back to no stroke color. There we go, just classic typography. Next, we have vertically scale. So If I click and drag this, you can see it's stretching the type vertically. And if I undo that and go over here to horizontal, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to stretch it horizontally. I want to tell you a word of caution when you are stretching vertically or horizontally. Typefaces are generally handcrafted very masterfully, with a lot of attention to detail. So they're not typically going to look very good if you're stretching them vertically or horizontally. So for the most part, I try to stay away from this kind of stuff. Next, we've got baseline shift, which is pretty simple. If we had, like, let's say, just for the sake of it, if I added, I hit Option R there to create rights managed symbol. If I was to jump down here and make that a superscript, it makes it much smaller. And if I was to then adjust the baseline shift, I can move it up and down based upon where I need it to be to fit nicely. So that's baseline shift. If I wasn't making it a subscript and I just needed to bring it up here for whatever reason, or down here, that's what baseline shift does. Next, we've got, highlight all this text. If for whatever reason we did not have a bold option under the font family, because some fonts do not, some typefaces do not have bold. This is a faux bold, which, there you go, it makes it look faux bold. Not a true bold, just a faux bold, right? We also have a faux italic. And then we also have a all caps. And we have a small caps, which makes the first letter of each word capitalized. Well, okay, so none of these are capitalized. So if I capitalize that, masterful, a performance, right? That's what small caps looks like. And then we also have a superscript, which I just showed you, and we have a subscript, which is when the character is brought lower to the baseline. And that's pretty much what you need to know about the character panel inside of After Effects. A lot of features here, a lot of powerful features to really handcraft your typography inside of After Effects and make it a powerful part of your motion design.